Ah, you guys, what a strange week it has been. So last night I watched Prey, and I quite enjoyed it. In fact, as someone who had fallen out with this franchise in recent years, mainly because of the terrible AVP movies, and, The Predator, I do at least appreciate it when they revert to the original formula, or at least give a nod to the original formula. Like with the Adrian Brody movie, Predators. Not perfect, but at least it felt like Predator. But what I wanted to talk about today was the one thing that I absolutely love about the Stan Winston design Yautja, and that's their armaments and weaponry, because it's been really interesting to see the variations between the movies. So I just wanted to do a quick video talking about what I think are the most powerful weapons we've seen used by this mysterious hunter species. Let me start by saying that what I love about the Yautja species design overall is this brilliant combination of the primitive and the high-tech, a combination that creates something quite unique, because a lot of the weaponry that I'm about to talk about, at first glance, looks like it's something straight from, I don't know, the medieval bronze dark age. I don't know, is the pirate age a thing? The pirate age, let's do that, let's go with that. Like, look at this thing. At first glance, it looks like it's been hammered together by a drunken blacksmith with only 3 rotten teeth wobbling around in his head. But as we'll talk about in just a few minutes, the things that this can do rival some of the most advanced races we've seen in sci-fi. Let's kick off the list with the weapon that I think is the most... Let's kick off the list with the weapon that I think inflicts the most brutal of deaths upon a chosen prey, and that's this, the net of death. Now, most nets are for capturing, aren't they? For those of you who don't know what a net is. But this net is different, because in true Yautja fashion, it's not really about capture at all. Get ensnared by this bad boy, and its motors are going to tighten that wire that is made of not rope, and it'll slice you into little cubes of cheese. Often fired out by the net gun, which blasts out the net with such force that it will often knock its target off its feet. And if you think you're cutting your way out with that Swiss Army knife Crazy Uncle Jimbo gave you, think again, because there's only 2 things that I can think of that can cut this. That's the Predator's smart disc, which I'll come back to, and xenomorph blood. Next up, a Yautja mainstay, the retractable wrist blade, also known as Gauntlet knife. Varying in size and shape throughout the franchise, these are retractable blades that stem from a gauntlet worn around the forearm. Some can fire off as a projectile, but it's mostly used for chopping and dismembering. When paired with the Yautja's immense upper arm strength, there isn't much that this thing won't slice through. They also often use it when ripping out the skulls and spines of their prey to make their trophies, so all in, you might call this the Yautja's primary blade. One of the most impressive of these was called the scimitar, which was a much longer single blade, kind of like a katana. In comparison to some other entries on the list, the wrist blade is a fairly simple weapon, but it is one that almost all of the Yautja seem to revere, and among the first weapons a young hunter will receive. They've also been known to come in triple-bladed varieties.
Man, that's only 3. That's Wolverine.
Interestingly enough, in the comics, they've also been seen to have non-combat uses and can be used as keys to open doors and certain ceremonial uses. I don't know, like bar mitzvahs, I guess. Now, of course, the Plasmacaster should be on here, right? And it is, because I'm about to talk about it now. I nearly didn't talk about it because it's kind of an obvious one. But like if a prey is all the way over there and you can't be bothered schlepping one more step through this stinky alien terrain, like who lives on this planet anyway? The Slobbo aliens from Slobbo Prime? Slobs. Tidy the place up a bit. Then the Plasmacaster is the weapon for you. It's a longer range weapon, is what I'm trying to say. It is arguably the most devastating and technologically advanced offensive tool at the Yautja's disposal. The bolts fired by this weapon explode in a burst of plasma shrapnel upon striking a target, causing grievous wounds and potentially damaging other enemies near the point of impact. But power like this isn't just given away willy-nilly. Oh no, you have to earn this, you spotty juvenile Yautja. I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm sorry, I'm not a threat. They have to undergo a rite of passage to get it, where they will have to kill xenomorphs with only their close-range weapons before they're given this thing. The Plasmacaster can rotate 360 degrees, and when you remember the Predator called Greyback in Predator 2 had a Plasmacaster with its own laser sight as opposed to relying on the biohelmet's targeting system, you wonder whether this could provide full 360 degree covering fire and potentially fire in the opposite direction to the way the direction is facing. Did you see what I mean? And super amaze-ballsingly, the Plasmacaster can be dual-wielded too, as we saw in AVP Requiem, I believe it was, if my memory serves. So a Predator can become a walking turret able to unleash hellish levels of firepower. Pew pew. In Prey, we see what I think is a variant of the Plasmacaster with laser-guided arrows, like the whistle thing from Guardians of the Galaxy. But to be quite honest with you, I can't remember if this is a variant or a whole other weapon. So what else we got? We've seen them use these bear trap type things. We've seen them use plasma scythes, various swords, battle axes, and of course they have their cloak, although whether that's an offensive weapon or not is debatable, so I'm probably going to leave it off this list. It's cool though! Another one I wanted to talk about was from Prey, and that's the feral predator's bladed shield. Like any shield, its primary use is to shield. It's a fucking shield, okay? It shields shit. But this one also seems to have like these serrated edges, which we can see being able to cut through solid rock in a scene that nearly decapitates, what's her name? What's her name again? I don't know, Cynthia. Let's call her Cynthia. Next up, the Power Punch Glove from AVP Requiem. Now these are basically some mechanized brass knuckles that consists of a metal bridge that extends on command. From a predator's wrist gauntlet to connect with brass knuckles worn on the hand. Like any brass knuckles, it was used to give the Yautja a boost in punching strength, allowing a user to perform a punch powerful enough to make a hole in solid concrete. Imagine if there's like the one useless Yautja who goes back, he's like, well, what have you killed? A wall? But it was the prime wall, the wall queen, in fact. Then we have the shuriken, which can also be used as a cutting and slashing weapon, and it's mainly, like its Japanese namesake, used as a fearsome throwing weapon. With 6 retractable blades, it's been seen to be sharp enough to cut a xenomorph clean in half, and on another occasion, through 3 inches of solid stone. But as lethal as this is, I don't think it's the most lethal of the Yautja's throwing weapons, because next up, I want to talk about the Smart Disc. So again, there are a few variants of this guy, but I reckon it's most famously used by the City Hunter in Predator 2, and takes the form of this handheld disc with several holes in it, which can be thrown, but also used as a melee weapon in hand-to-hand combat, for hacking and slashing and general butchery. If the Yautja in question does throw it, its built-in gyros and stabilizers allow it to change course in midair, and follow a moving target by either autonomously tracking their heat signature, or following the guidance system built into the hunter's helmet. It can even slice through several targets in a row, as these poor cows found out in Predator 2, I believe it was. And after all of that, it can even return to its owner like a boomerang. Then the Yautja can shrink the thing down for convenience sake to make it easier to carry on their belt or backpack or whatever they're rocking at the time. Hipster Yautja was rocking a fanny pack before it was cool. If this weapon wasn't savage enough, it can be upgraded with what's called a nanovibronic edge, which, and I quote, is a high-speed molecular chainsaw around the circumference of the disc, which I believe turns it into a handheld circular chainsaw that has a haywire mode, which basically, if you get this thing stuck in you, the nanovibronic edge starts going haywire, and you're not having a good day at that point. You know, you might as well face it. Anyway, before we get to the most powerful weapon in the Yautja's arsenal, I wanted to talk to you about their whip, or razor whip as it's sometimes known. It's a segmented handheld bullwhip that reminds me of the saber chain in Pacific Rim the Black, remember that? And in that it wraps around its target, and once it's tightened, digs in and begins to lacerate and possibly cut the target in half. Rumor has it that these may be constructed from xenomorph tails due to its ability to withstand xenomorph acidic blood, and plus it's got this barbed end. There have been 3 variants of these whips: the Shiv Cutter, the Life Scythe, and the Praetorian's Tip, fashioned from the tail of the Praetorian Royal Guard xenomorph, which I think is the whip that Wolf had in AVP Requiem. I'm not sure. Anyway, to the last entry on my list, and the weapon that I believe to be the most powerful Yautja weapon, and of course, it will be no surprise, it's the Wrist Gauntlet with its self-destruction ability. A terrifying measure of last resort. We've seen a few times now how even in defeat, the Yautja still gets the last laugh by blowing the absolute shit out of everything. This powerful explosion would cleanse all trace of the Yautja ever having been there, and ensure that none of its technology falls into enemy hands. But the Wrist Gauntlet is one of the Yautja's most prized possessions for more reason than just that, as it controls the warrior's cloak, the Plasmacaster, tracking and communications. It's kind of like how your phone controls your headphones and your smartwatch, and you can be covered in all this Bluetooth shit, but without the phone, the rest is nothing. Apparently, in extreme cases, this device has been known to be surgically grafted to its warrior to fuse with its central nervous system for better reaction times and integration and stuff. But in that case, removal of the device can be fatal, and such a procedure is probably overkill. Like, you'd have to be a real zealot. You know, these things love the killing, they just love it, but to have that done, you must really love the killing. Okay, guys, let's leave it there for now. Make sure you let me know if I've forgotten anything in the comments below, and make sure you don't forget to hit like and subscribe and all that sweet jazz saxophone music from the 1990s rainy action sequences. Obviously I need to take my meds. So I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and cheerio, bye. Yeah, I accidentally deleted the theme song, and I can't be bothered going to find it, and it's somewhere in like a 5 terabyte hard drive. It's somewhere in there. Windows search don't do shit, and it's just too hot.